All right, so the good news is you've got an option other than a Jeep. You can tow this Ford ST, and I'll walk you through this today, and we'll try to go over some of the details that allow you to get it connected and towed by your RV. Do me a favor and give this thing a like and subscribe, and I'll post more videos. So pop the hood so I can show you under there. For safety, we've blocked the wheel because once this thing is in transmission disconnect mode, it will not stay in one place on this little slope. It'll roll down the hill on me. So make sure you've got a wheel chock. I've already taken the liberty of pulling the door off of the transmission disconnect. It's a little tiny door. You can use a little plastic tool to, pop it off. It's got a couple of clips on each side, and notch down is the way that it goes back on. So, and that little door is up underneath the dash, and it's this little tiny box. Right here. And inside of that box, you'll pull out this nice yellow cable with the small tether handle on the end of it. And what this is the transmission disconnect. And so there's a procedure for this. It's pretty simple. Once you get this out, that's half the battle. And I'll show you here inside. All right, so I'll close the door here. Be sure to put this door somewhere where you can keep it so that that tether cable doesn't pop out on you. So I just put it in the tray there. So the procedure is this. You're going to turn on the accessory power, which means don't push the brake. When the car goes through its cycle and everything's booted up, then it will be ready. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to grab this yellow tether cable, preferably in your right hand if you can, because it needs to come down and to the right in order to, or out and to the right, I should say, in order to clip it into its locked position, which will disable the transmission. So once this happens, these settings on the control knob for the, as my daughter likes to call it, the Prindle, PRND, for the controls for the transmission, these will be completely disabled. They won't do anything because the transmission will actually be disconnected from the motor drive. So, or from the drivetrain. So here's the deal. You'll put your right foot on the brake, and I think I'm gonna switch hands here. Left hand, right hand. And with your foot on the brake, you're going to grab this cable firmly. I like to wrap a finger around it. You're gonna pull it out and down to your right until it clips in. All right. So what you'll see there will be the transmission is not in neutral, or is not in drive, and is disconnected. You'll see the emergency light telling you that there's something not quite right with the motor, which is actually perfectly fine. Parking not available because there is no transmission connected, and this is all right. Now, an essential task here is to get this brake light off before you do anything else, because if not, that EBS system is engaged, emergency braking system is engaged, and you'll drag the back wheels down the street. So what you're going to do is put your foot on the brake pedal, and you're going to turn off the parking brake here. Once you've confirmed that that light is out, everything else seems to be fine. Now you can turn off the power, and then we'll pop out and do some work under the hood. Okay, so back under the hood, we're ready to do our final step before we can tow this, and that is to simply turn off the power. So you can see the way that we've got this cabled up. The power comes from the battery through this cable to this switch. This is just a manual disconnect, and they make an electronic disconnect as well, but I've used the manual one because I had one from an old camper. And then I just bought a cable from Die Hard that was pre-made. It's got an end on it already here, and it already has an end on it here. And so I tied it to the original electrical connection to the battery, which is underneath this tape, and I just taped it up so that nobody gets shocked if they're banging around here and actually accidentally touch the ground. And all you do is you just turn off the key switch, and now the power's off, and this vehicle is in neutral. Well, it's not in neutral, it's actually in transmission disconnect, and it's ready to tow. If I take that shock out, this car will roll freely. All right, so your breakaway cable is plugged in, and then you've got the power from the blue aux on this little outlet adapter. I like to turn it so the LED is facing me, and then that will plug into the 12-volt source that we have here, again coming from the coach. So this is not reliant on the car. There is a battery backup inside of the Patriot 3 that gives it some juice. It's got a capacitor set in here, so these things won't go bad as easy as a typical lithium battery. But if this thing were to suddenly break away from the coach, this will still have its own power source to stop the vehicle. So we'll go into the power cycling on this in a bit after we start the vehicle, but I didn't want to do that right now because we're behind the exhaust here, and it would be pretty noisy. All right, a couple key tips here. One is that when you got your tow bar set up here, and there's a 7-pin connector, right? So this is where your umbilical from your coach goes. That center pin on a coach is actually 12 volts. So it idles around between 12 and 14 volts DC. From that pin, I wired up a single 12 wire through the hood here, up underneath, and to this little circuit breaker, which I got advanced auto parts. And this circuit breaker then continues on that 12 cable through the firewall and underneath the dash. And the reason I did that is because once you've turned off the power to the battery local, you have no juice for your braking system. So you need to have 12 volts to supply your braking unit if you're using an electric brake. So this 12 volts is hot only when it's connected to the coach. This has nothing to do with the car. It doesn't go to the car battery. So key element, you'll need to put this in. Another key element of towing the edge is that because you've turned the power off, you'll have no brake lights. The way the brake lights are powered is there's a set of LEDs that we ran into these rear lights, and there's a lighting kit that you can buy from Blue Ox that will help you do that. And it's a series of LEDs under both of the back brake lights, and these connect also directly up to the 7-pin connector under the grill here, and that connects up with the pins that you see there around the edge, one of them being the ground, one being the right turn signal, one being the left turn signal, and one being the brake lights. Those are direct connected because, again, you have no power coming from this battery once you've turned this key switch off. That means all of the power that's going to this tow is coming from the coach. There's no source power on this that's available. I wanted to show you on the keys, on the key fob itself. Of course, there's a little button. You just press this button, and I'll try to do this with one hand. It's not pretty, but the idea is you pull the back of the key out, and you can get a real metal key like back in the old days. And so this little metal key will unlock this door. And of course, you'll say, well, where is the key lock, right? So you'll notice on this little end cap, there's a little lock, and if you tilt underneath, you'll see a little hole there, and that will fit this key. Again, one hand. So you put the key in a little bit and just push up slightly, and you'll notice this cap comes off. So if you take this cap off, then what you see is a regular old key switch. And with this, you can use the key fob key, strange as it is, insert it into the lock, turn it to the left, unlocks, turn it to the right, and the door is locked. And then just make sure that you do not lose this piece, because if you do, it's going to be expensive to replace because it's color keyed to your vehicle. So make sure it's snapped on and give it a good tug to make sure that it doesn't come loose. So that's it. Your door's locked and you're ready to go. Okay, so now you get where you want to go, and you want to put it all back together again. You simply pop the hood, open the dust cap, insert the key, turn the key on. You'll see the lights come on. Now what you'll do is just go back into the car and transmission's not in park still, which is good. And all you need to do here is just go down, grab your transmission disconnect cable, pull it out, release it, tuck your cables nicely neatly back in, put your cover back on, and when you start your car, everything will be ready to drive. All right, so hopefully this video saves you a lot of time and aggravation. We had a hard time figuring this whole thing out, and there was a lot to it. But it is possible to tow your Ford Edge ST, and a better option than standard Jeep. And if you have any questions, feel free to post below. I'll answer whatever I can. And do me a favor and share and like and subscribe.